Members, if you can please take seats and be upstanding for the chairman. Thank you.
We're on the questions to the leader, cabinet members and committee chairman, and we've got to question 6. And the latest one is from Councillor Camilleri concerning highway repairs on Rock Hill. Councillor Camilleri.
Thank you, Chair. Camilleri. Yeah. We know how precious we are overnight in this chamber. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Transport and Environment. In late 2019, a cliff forming part of the iconic Mansfield landmark, the old rock houses, collapsed, causing the gardens of nearby residents to collapse as well. The incident also made the adjacent highway and pavement unsafe, requiring Nottinghamshire County Council to install temporary, remember that word, temporary safety barriers on Rock Hill at a cost of approximately £190,000. A lot of money. They were renting for £1,000 a week, by the way. Despite pressure from myself as a local councillor, local county councillor, and officers from the county council, there has been no visible sign of progress by Mansfield District Council towards making the site safe. So this situation has caused inconvenience, distress and worry to affected residents and road users for over 4 years. Could the Cabinet Member confirm whether any action is thought to be imminent from Mansfield District Council to make the site safe? And if not, what can we do to oblige the district to act so this council can finally remove its temporary road safety barriers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camilleri. Councillor Clark to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our officers have been in regular contact with those from Mansfield District Council ever since the cliff collapse, which Councillor Camilleri described in his question. In June 2022, a site meeting was held between the County Council and Mansfield District Council officers. After this meeting, Mansfield District gave an undertaking to carry out works to make the site safe, which in turn would allow the barriers to be removed and the adjacent footway to be reopened. Since that time, our officers have made a number of follow-up requests to Mansfield District Council to clarify the details of the proposed works, including programme dates and design details. We continue to liaise with Mansfield District Council on the subject and have recently received positive indications that a contractor has now been selected to undertake the works. The dates of the works are still to be confirmed, but I will share details as soon as I have them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Camilleri, have you a supplementary question?
Chairman, thank you, Councillor Clark, for your reply. But do you understand my scepticism about the latest positive indication from Mansfield District Council on getting this work done? Because, quite frankly, I've heard it all before. I have absolutely no doubt that the Nottinghamshire County Council officers are doing what they can to expedite progress from this end. This council is not at fault. However, if the work required from Mansfield District Council does not commence in the next couple of months or so, will Councillor Clark join me in demanding a personal meeting with the relevant senior members and officers at Mansfield District Council to get some answers? Because, quite honest, I'm sick of being fobbed off, and so are my residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camilleri. Councillor Clark to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I hear Councillor Camilleri loud and clear, believe me, I share his frustration. Yeah, he's 100% correct. The County Council is not the cause of this delay, but whatever action we can take to be part of the solution to it, I'm willing to consider, including the kind of in-person meeting you described. I would hope that Mansfield District Council don't need reminding of the damage this delay is causing to their own reputation, and that you will see action on the ground very soon, without the need for any further interventions from us. It's a bit like Councillor Camilleri saying we need some action. Let's get the job done. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Henshaw, do you want to raise a point of order?
It was just a point of order, Chair, because I mean, obviously, there's been things debarred from debate today in relation to various things that we put forward, and I was just wondering whether or not that would be the question from Councillor Camilleri would be in the same vein, because it's not a direct responsibility to this county council. Councillor Camilleri is a member of Mansfield District Council. All he's got to do is pick up the phone and talk to the relevant officers and arrange a meeting.
Yeah,
Chair.
can you talk to the officer after the meeting, please, about that? If you want to take that forward, because you've got the opportunity to ask a question now, because question 7, you are actually asking it. But would you like to ask it now? I'm calling you now.
Point of order.
Well, now I'm calling you on the question.
Okay, right. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
calling me.
Councillor Henshaw.
Thanks for calling me, Chair, in relation to the question that I put forward. And then it's a question to Councillor Clark.
Point of order.
Well, I'll sit down.
Point of order. Only very quickly, just so in fact, I've been waiting for a letter from the Chief Executive of Mansfield District Council for 6 weeks doing it. And
Right.
It's not written.
That's not,
There we go.
Councillor Camilleri, thank you. Do not come back on that.
no point of
Councillor
order.
Henshaw, proceed.
Thank you, Chair. My question to Councillor Clark. Can the Cabinet member provide an update on the number of insurance claims against this council received in the last year for damage to vehicles due to potholes and the poor overall state of the highways in Nottinghamshire? Thank you.
Councillor Henshaw. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given that insurance claim matters fall within the remit of my fellow colleague, Councillor Jackson, I'll ask him to respond. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you, Councillor Henshaw, for your question. I can confirm that the number of vehicle damage claims received by the Council this financial year to the 19th of March is 1,943. 1,923 of these claims related to direct pothole damage, while the remaining 20 are other highways matters. All insurance claims are carefully considered and dealt with by our risk and insurance professionals in line with our established processes and procedures, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Henshaw, have you a supplementary question?
Yes, Chair, thanks for that. I'm not sure whether I'm going to direct it to Councillor Jackson or to Councillor Clark because it's in relation to a similar sort of vein. Would the portfolio holder... well, I'm speaking through the Chair. I'm speaking through the Chair. I'm speaking through the Chair. Through the Chair. All right. Would the portfolio holder happen to know the instances of insurance claims that have been submitted relating to the Mar route from Abbott Road to the Plesley Hill Junction? And would he look into the suggestion that the long dead Plesley bypass be looked at again, which will help the residents of Plesley dramatically to reduce noise and air pollution? Thank you, Chair.
Well, Councillor Clark, do you want to reply to this?
It's to do with insurance claims.
Yes, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jackson, you reply.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chairman. I mean, look, the bits that are related to the original question are the bits that are legitimate supplementary. I can't speak to the... did you say was it Plesley bypass? Yeah, well, and the Plesley bypass. Look, I can't speak to the Plesley bypass. I'm sure that we can itemise where possible where the claims that are received have come from and provide Councillor Henshaw with a written answer.
You can ask for it.
Written response, Councillor Henshaw. I hope that's satisfactory.
That's more than satisfactory, Chair. Thank you.
Question 8 from Councillor Gowland regarding 20 mile an hour speed limits.
We've timed out.
Are we talking?
It's now clear that the vast majority of people want traffic to travel calmly down their streets. Fast and heavy vehicles create more potholes and pollution, particularly when braking. Does this council support the introduction of 20 mile an hour speed limits in neighbourhoods where it's clear there's demand for such restrictions?
Thank you, Councillor Gowland. A brief response, please, from Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I suppose the answer really depends on what Councillor Gowland means by clear demand, because I think the implication is more about Councillor Gallen's question about public demand. However, clear demand could equally mean practical or circumstantial. For example, this council has broadly accepted that there is clear demand and good evidence for 20-mile-an-hour speed limits outside schools because of the risks inherent in such environments where there are children present in substantial numbers, multiple vehicles dropping off or picking up those children, and the reality that children may not be aware from experience of the dangers posed by traffic. Those factors could be said to clearly demand extra safety measures, such as 20-mile-an-hour speed limit zones, and in many cases we have taken them. However, if I assume that from this question that Councillor Gowland is referring specifically to clear public demand, say from a particular residential area, this then leads to the question, who and how many? A lot of people have a vested interest in our roads and strong views on what road policy should be. Residents, visitors, pedestrians, car drivers, lorry drivers, cyclists, etc. It is completely right that all their views should be respected, but we also need to be conscious that sometimes a loud minority group can create an impression of greater or clearer demand than truly exists, while a majority remain relatively quiet. I'm sure Councillor Gowland is right. It is now clear that the vast majority of people want traffic to travel calmly down their streets. I'm sure we all agree with that. Indeed, I can't think of a time when residents would not want that. But I'm not sure every type of road user would define calmly as no more than 20 miles an hour. Councillor Gowland will recall that I co-signed a motion with her on this issue 2 years ago. So I'm certainly not against 20-mile-an-hour zones in the right place when appropriate. If this county council has consistent data and evidence demonstrating a clear, well-proven demand, to use Councillor Gowland's words, the vast majority of people for a 20-mile-an-hour restriction in that particular location, then we should feel compelled to listen to that demand. That response will be based on examining all the evidence, based not just on want or need. Evidence such as characteristics of the road, traffic volume, KSI statistics, national criteria, compliance, and any other information that is available. It would be far too general to make a blanket statement or policy that merely said this council supports the introduction of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits where there is a clear demand for such restrictions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Garland. Excuse me. Have you got a supplementary?
The Prime Minister has commissioned a review of low traffic networks and neighbourhood schemes, which revealed earlier this month that twice as many people surveyed are supported these to those who oppose them. Ruth Edwards MP has written to residents asking where we want 20-mile-an-hour speed limits because she recognises that many people are concerned about this. However, this week the government have said they're apparently cracking down because of the loud minority who are opposed to anything to do with restricting what cars can do. So my question to you is, does the member agree with me that the government should spend less time trying to turn our streets into some sort of battleground and stop making it harder for councils to get on with delivering safer, greener neighbourhoods for their residents?
Councillor Clark, can you give a swift response? We're out of time.
By all means, Mr. Chairman. I have in mind, in fact, what's happened in Wales. There's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit across practically the whole of Wales. So perhaps, and that was instigated by a Labour-controlled Welsh government. So perhaps that went down well, didn't it? That the fact that that hasn't been welcomed probably gives her the answer that we need to make sure that these are well considered and appropriate at all times.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So the remaining questions will receive a written answer. We'll move swiftly on to the next item on the agenda. Can I find it? Yeah, got it. So it's item 13. Notice and motions. Please be aware that if we are to complete all business on the agenda today, we will need to start motion 2 by no later than 4:30, which we should manage. Motion 1, response to the autumn statement carried over from December the 2023 meeting. The chairman calls Councillor Creamer to move the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. When submitting this motion in its initial form, I didn't expect that it would necessarily require a political debate. Given the actions that have followed since then, it's even clearer now to me that cross-party agreement on the spirit of the motion, action taken by every leader in this chamber, has at one point demonstrated a consensus view that the government simply do not provide councils with the funding they need to deliver the day-to-day services they are expected and legally required to deliver. That is what this motion is addressing today. It addressed it then and it still addresses it today. Mr. Chairman, I do not need to explain to this chamber the challenges facing this council and virtually every other council in the country. We've heard this so often in the last decade that it would probably be the mastermind specialist subject if most of us here in this chamber. The crisis in funding was made clearly only last month when ruling administration set a budget that they themselves will admit privately is nothing more than a stay of execution, kicking things down the road, which I said last time as well. The council have had to burn through reserves this year budget to keep itself supporting, and without the fundamental change from central government, it is likely this will happen again and again and again until we end up in a situation which many other councils currently face up and down the country, of all political colours, that they simply ceasing to function. Their functions no longer able to survive with the cuts. In the heat of the budget debate last month, the Labour group were accused of not having a plan. Mr. Chairman, the budget may not be decided in one meeting on one day in the year, but is shaped by the actions we take in the preceding 364 days. I know it's a leap year. We are currently 343 days away from the next annual budget setting meeting. That means we have 343 days to compel this government, and given this general election later this year, it will be this late within the year that has to happen, the next government to act in the interests of this organisation and our residents, and frankly to act in the national interest. To fundamentally change the approach to funding local government to ensure the long-term sustainability of the services we deliver, essential services, all of them, regardless of where they sit in the spectrum. We do not have the luxury of waiting until next year to address this crisis, because our residents rely and depend on the services we provide. This motion has been written objectively and as straightforward. It should have hopefully support from the whole chamber. This motion is asking this council to do three things. One, the first is the analysis of the county councils network. The OBR forecast in the autumn statement from 22nd of November, asking the council to note that these things exist and should not be controversial actions. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I was very concerned if members of this chamber believe that these items simply did not exist. If members did not decide to do that, it would be the case of some only confirm my suspicions that they are in fact from another dimension, living on a different planet, a different galaxy, if you like science fiction, a different universe, completely different dimension. The second ask to put before this motion is for the council to agree that Treasury plans to shrink as a proportion of GDP the amount spent on local authorities to a level below 5% would be detrimental to this organisation and drag us into a position where statutory service will go from being difficult to deliver to being literally impossible. I know some members lazily boast that they say they want to shrink the state. But when they say that, they are telling us and our residents they want less money invested in our roads, less money spent on our care services, less money for children's services, for social workers, and so on. So if that's what you believe and you seek to vote against this motion, and be honest with the public that you do not value these services, it is undeniable they need to be paid for. The third ask is that the council write to the Prime Minister and Chancellor to make it clear that we believe council should be funded well enough to do our job and funded sustainably. So we're not asking for the impossible. Mr. Chairman, some members of the group opposite have scoffed at the idea of signing letters in the past. The leader believes that by signing a letter in December asking for a one-off payment of about £7 million for this council to keep us running was actually effective. And they can't both be right. It is effective writing letters or it isn't. So embarrassingly, one of them has to eat their words and admit that advocacy does or does not work. And because it does work, in our opinion, we need to advocate more and advocate better until we get the right outcome for this council. Mr. Chairman, this is a motion which could be put forward in any other council chamber across the country by any political group, because virtually no council is in an optimistic position this year. In fact, the only way a motion like this could be politically inconvenient would be if the leader would then have to go to explain the decision to the Whip's office in Westminster, which is just a matter of fact. Unfortunately, that does put this council's Conservative MP in a compromising position, but is a position of his own making. And real leadership isn't about taking easy decisions, which he himself has said in the past, but taking the right decision and facing up to the consequences of those decisions. I will finish this. In 2019, the Conservative Derbyshire County Council, Barry Lewis, launched a campaign calling for a fair share of government funding for Derbyshire. To quote the campaign asked directly, he said, "One of our short-term funding from the government is only sticking plaster. Councils should be properly baseline funded so they can plan future services for their residents." End quote. I call on this chamber to support the motion to advocate for the end of one-off payments, short-term sticking plasters, funding that we have had to endure for the last 14 years. It's this chamber many times, Crosspark, we have said we need long-term funding. We need proper planning so that we can actually make our proper planning. So it's not something that's not been agreed with here in the past. So our residents once again feel secure in the knowledge that this council has the funding and the resource that it needs to deliver for them. So it's the services for our people. So I move that we all sit down and vote on it positively. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. The chairman calls Councillor Fold to second the motion.
Chairman, I second the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. So we'll call it the members who wish to speak. Councillor Bradley, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't really understand why this is still on the agenda, if I'm being honest. The figures in it are out of date. Quoting from the autumn statement back in November and the OBR report that came with it, of course, we've had a budget since then. We've had revised OBR figures and we've had a new set of fiscal events and changes and policy changes. We've also had a £600 million increase in our local government budget. So the motion asks us to do things that are already done. And that is the fundamental reason why we can't support it today. It says in the motion that there is a £639 million unexpected cost, which is absolutely right. And of course, we have since secured through that campaign, led by, in many ways, Nottinghamshire County Council, £600 million to mitigate that cost. That is additional funding to help support our budgets, to help support council budgets all around the country. And it was a positive step forward that helped us and many other councils to tackle the challenges that you described, Jim. Of course, Labour in that context have said they will not turn the taps on, they will not splash loads of money on local government either. So I'm not sure where you think that funding would come from anywhere else, what else you would cut, where else you would raise taxes to fund it. What we have had subsequent to that campaign has been a £600 million increase in local government budgets. You said, Jim, in your speech that we're spending less on care and less on various other things, but of course that's not true. And if you sat in the budget meeting last month, you will see we are spending more on social care. We're spending more on children's services. Our budget went up, I'm picking a figure out in my head, I want to say 70 million quid, roughly, more than last year, Richard, that we are spending on those core services. So that's just not the case. Of course, we're now beyond that budget settlement. We are in a place where the next local government settlement is beyond even general election. So we'll have to wait and see what happens over the course of the year. But Jim, there's still no plan from the Labour Party. We had no plan in the budget. We've got no plan here again today other than to write a letter that actually we've already written. You mentioned Barry Lewis's comments. I know them well because I am also a signatory on that same letter. And to your point about the effectiveness of letters, it's absolutely true. Just writing a letter from this chamber saying we're not very happy, Mr. Government, doesn't achieve a lot. But when you build a coordinated campaign, as Councillor Lewis and I and colleagues on the CCN did, as the chair of the all-party group for the CCN and for counties in Parliament, and you organise people and you get 40-odd parliamentary colleagues, all Conservative, by the way, rallying around that cause and making that case to government, you achieve success. And we secured that £600 million. So we continue to lobby. We've been successful in how we lobby, but there's no sense today in sitting and recognising a load of figures that are now out of date, analysis that has since been updated, and writing a letter that we've already written to secure funding that we've already secured. I'm surprised that the Labour group didn't take the time to amend and update this motion so it might have been relevant today, but given that it is so out of date, I'm afraid the Conservative administration can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. The chairman calls Councillor Richard Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I don't have a lot to add to what the leader has said. What I will say, though, is I was actually disappointed when this timed out at the December council meeting, because it was going to be very easy for us to deal with it then and to say we're already doing this, but we're doing it more effectively than we were being asked to at the time. I think back a month, 4 weeks ago to this day, we were stood in here listening to Labour members ridiculing writing a letter as achieving anything. Now they've come back to something they said a month before that and asking us to do just that again. As the leader said, although he's too modest to say the extra 600 million was largely because of the campaign that Ben led. It was 7.3 million extra to this council. Ben, the reason they didn't want to talk about the additional spending that we've made here on improving the roads, on supporting adult social care, on looked after children, is because they voted against it and they're embarrassed by it. I was surprised they did, but they're embarrassed by it. They don't want to admit to it again. As the leader said, since this motion was first written, we've had the extra £600 million for the sector announced by central government. We've had our own budget here 4 weeks ago. We've had the Chancellor's budget 2 weeks ago. And this week we had Rachel Reeves speak for an hour on Labour's economic plans. Now, she might have spoken for an hour. She didn't actually say anything. I'm no more wise as to what she actually intends to do, if God forbid she's given the chance. But all of the mood music around the Chancellor's budget a couple of weeks ago was that there won't be any more money if there's a Labour government than if there's a Conservative government for local authority funding in the future. They know it because they're nodding at me behind them, Chairman. So we need to get real. We need to understand the funding envelope that we're working in, not just now, but over the next few years. When we lobby effectively, as the leader has said. It's not about writing a letter. I remember Labour administrations here in the past tweeting out photographs of them lobbying, and they were doing lobbying, standing on Parliament Green with a petition and Big Ben in the background. We don't do that. We do it effectively. We get in front of people and build a coalition for an argument that we're making. So I don't intend to say any more than that. I doubt any more members are going to want to speak on this, Chairman, because it is so far out of date. It's absolutely pointless. And as Ben said, we certainly won't be supporting it.
Councillor Jackson, but Councillor Carr, the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Bradley asked why is this even on the agenda. Well, there's quite a simple reply. It's on the agenda because of our restrictive constitution, which didn't allow it to be debated when it was relevant, quite frankly. I mean, let's have a look at some other areas of the constitution. In our today, allowing 6 questions at 3 minutes each when you're only allowed 15 minutes, even I can do that maths. That's why it's on the agenda today and not 3. 6 questions at 6 constituency speeches at 3 minutes each, and they only allowed 15 minutes for all of it.
Councillor Carr, would you like to make a complaint as a separate
And
matter?
of course not.
Can you speak to the
I'm asking him why is it even on the? Why is it even? Look, can I suggest that you let me carry on, because you didn't allow me to put my questions, and I know for a fact, because we all counted here.
Councillor Carr, can you get on with it?
No, you allowed Councillor Camilleri to ask 3.
Councillor Carr, can you get on with it?
It's unfair. Anyway, yeah, I actually do agree that letters are no good, but I will vote for your motion out of spirit. Letters are no good with this government. The best thing to do with regards to this government is not vote Tory in the PPC election, not vote Tory in the mayor election, and certainly don't vote Conservative in the general election. That's how the message will get across to the Conservative Party. You're not going to have the luxury of the Brexit Party standing down in your seats next time. Only this morning, the Tory candidate for the mayor of Manchester has jumped ship to reform. Jumped ship to reform.
Councillor Carr, in another format, this might be very interesting, but can you speak to the motion? Yeah.
I'm speaking to the motion. I'm explaining to people that letters are no good. Only voting against this lot will actually see change. And that is a fact. So all I would say is don't vote Tory in any election this year. Full stop. Thank you.
The chairman calls Councillor Henshaw.
Thanks, Chair. I rise in support of the motion. Now, it says in the motion we write a letter. Now, the people are pouring cold water on writing letters. I'm a great believer in writing letters because the power of the pen is brilliant, and you can change things. As a supporter of Amnesty International, we regularly write letters to various regimes all over the world about people that are incarcerated, and by the strength of those letters, people are saved and people are then not executed. So there is merit in writing letters. So, you know, don't disavow that. It's a good thing to do. It might not be what you want to do, but it is a good thing. And when we talk about the motion in relation to local government finance, and admitted, our leader is walking around with his chest puffed out because he got us a few extra million, 7 million, which is what percentage of the total revenue budget of this council? It's not loads, it's peanuts. And we know that local government is vastly underfunded. And that's not just me saying that. The Local Government Association, in their latest deliberations, welcomes, and we all should, don't be churlish about it, welcome the additional 600 million in funding for the sector, 500 million of which will be added to the social care grant. But, and this is a salient point, councils will still need to raise council tax and dip into their reserves. Exactly what we did here. We're saying we didn't put the council tax up to the maximum amount, but what percentage underneath the maximum amount was it? Point whatever percent. We also raided our reserves. So, you know, let's be honest about this. And it's not just the Local Government Association that said that local government is underfunded. The County Council network, of which our leader went out as not as the lead role, but as a member of that conglomerate who put the names to that letter asking for additional monies. Now, at the end of the day, you've got two major organisations there that work very hard and work long in relation to local government, and they are saying local government is still underfunded. So therefore, it makes sense for us to write the power of the pen to government to ask for additional monies and information. Now, we spoke earlier this morning, how I tried to get it in about my constituency of Mansfield West in relation to a bypass, and I managed to sort of slip it in relation to my question. When they cancelled HS2, they were said that there were going to be millions coming into the area, coming into the country to do road repairs. Well, if you've got the money, look at Plesley and get me a bypass so that we alleviate the problems of the residents that live there. And I should be pushing that is what you do. So I'm open to people to negotiate and to debate the issue, but that's a very important thing for me. Now, in relation to our motion, it makes common sense asking the government to look at local government finance again to increase it. It cuts the problem out in relation to us having to raise council tax, hopefully, and to reduce the amount of money that we raise from reserves. So it makes common sense, and it's there, and it makes a practical solution, so I support the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henshaw. Councillor Fold, you reserved your right to speak. Can you speak now?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't get it. I mean, seriously, what are we here for if not to advocate for councils to be given the funding necessary to provide services our residents need and deserve? Isn't that a job? It seems to be completely unthinkable that a leader of a county council, or any of his members, or anybody in this chamber, in fact, wouldn't want to support a motion calling on the government to give us long-term sustainable funding. We're not asking for more than what we need to provide the standard of service our residents require and deserve, and I'm sure we can all agree that what they do reserve What they do deserve is to be treated with dignity and fairness, so they can live their lives in safety as well as in good health and reasonable comfort. And we know this council has many hard-working officers doing their best to deliver good outcomes, but their budgets have been absolutely drained over the last 14 years. And we know that demand for council services are rising, but long-term funding commitments to tackle the challenges they face on a daily business simply are not there. And just to give you some real hard evidence, and I'm going to quote from the County Council's network too, bear in mind that the County Council's network is a cross-party network made up of largely Conservative councillors. Okay, and this is what it says in the report. The County Council network argues that councils will not be able to stand another bout of funding reductions without fundamentally undermining the financial solvency of even the most well-run and efficient councils. If this carries on, every council in the country will be issuing 114 notices. It then goes on to call for an honest discussion on what they should be expected to deliver. And that's what I'm asking of you today. As well as your support, some honesty about where we are, and then some proactive real action and support for the good people of Nottinghamshire. So I'm seconding this motion because I believe strongly in devolution, real devolution, where power, decision making, and yes, money is redistributed at community level by community leaders who know their communities best. The installation of a mayor should lead to a stronger local voice and not an opportunity for Westminster to have an even bigger top-down enforcing influence on local decision making, but that's my fear. But I know Claire Ward won't do that when she's elected. I believe in the power and the value of local government, and I think most of us in here do. I trust that most of us here, despite our political differences, become councillors not to further our own career interests, but to make a real difference to our residents' lives. Since being leader of the Labour group, I, along with my members, have tried time and time again to raise issues that are really important to our residents in Nottinghamshire, only to find that the powers we once had, like the power of well-being, have been ripped away from us under successive Conservative governments. I just agree with something that Councillor Carr just said, actually. The cabinet system you introduced has drastically introduced our chance to properly scrutinise you in the way you lead this council and the decisions you make. And yet, it was put forward an issue at our December 4 council meeting in response to the government's so-called autumn statement. But what progress still then? This is still current. However you do the sums, and you just seem to do the sums in all sorts of different creative ways, there is still no investment in local government in this country. And look at the national picture. Rishi Sunak and the Chancellor have plunged the country into recession, and little has changed for the government funding. And what did the OBR say in their latest report, published just this month? So this is current. In response to the budget, page 108, quotes, given local authorities statutory duty to provide the range of services where demand is likely to grow, for example, adult and child social care, pressure on local authority finances and services will continue. And the huge and widening gap in health inequality continues. Poverty, now 4.3 million children are in poverty. That's 100,000 up on last year. The cost of living is driving more and more people, including many in low-paid jobs, to food banks. There's a mental health crisis, and our roads and pavements are not only poor, they are a real danger to pedestrians, cyclists and our road users. It is local government that is best placed to get this country and this county back on its feet. But it can only do that if central government put both its trust and sufficient funds into councils, both here and in Nottinghamshire and across the country. And just to remind you, something that actually John Pease said just now or earlier today, if we can't create prosperity for everyone, we will have failed. Okay. So please let us be honest about where we are. Let us shout out to get loudly and clearly what local government cannot provide for our residents properly without more funding. Thank you.
Councillor Fowler. The Chairman calls Councillor Creamer for your right of reply.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't take too long because a lot has actually been said. Part of it by Councillor Carr. Thank you very much. The actual questions that was asked to me by the leader about why we didn't alter it, if we'd altered it, it would have been a new resolution. The new resolution, we might not have even got it in again because of the system. The systems you've got. So you mentioned half of it. So we carefully worded it. When it actually comes as well to the amount of money you're spending, yes, you can be said you're spending more, but the pressures are greater than what the resources you've put in. The resources are still below par. You're not addressing it at all. You're still kicking the can down the road. You're relying on actual capital receipts that may or may not appear. You're relying on the gambling on actually our residents. What we're asking you to do here is nice and simple. Put a letter into the government. It's your government at the moment. Put a letter into the government asking to be resourced properly. At the moment, you're on about quoting these figures are out of date. Yes, they're out of date. There was the OBR was put last week. There's a 40 billion black hole in local government. So that's worse than it was here. An actual 40 billion. As has already been said by other councillors as well, the actual 600 million, which you mentioned, went round the country. Now 7 point, I forget which 1 or 2, 7 million. Again, that doesn't address the fundamentals of it. The fundamentals are that resources are not keeping up with demand. They're not going to keep up with demand, and we're asking for properly funded councils throughout the country, but particularly ours. We've got problems with the roads. You've got people writing in all the time. And particularly, you knock on any door, and we're all knocking on doors, including everybody's knocking on doors. And what's the biggest thing that comes up every time? Roads and potholes. You haven't got the resources. You can keep pouring money in, which you have done, on this, that, and the other. £11 million the other year, £7 million here, £4 million there, £3 million on Derbyshire Road and Mansfield Road. The potholes are still getting worse. The resources are not keeping up with the problem. So you're actually creating a worse problem as time goes by, because in the end, as it's already been said in my speech and others, once you've kicked the can down the road so far, once you've depleted your reserves, you're finished. So I'd ask you, nice and simple, vote for this. It's not out of date, unfortunately. I wish it was out of date, but it is not actually out of date. It is more relevant now and becoming more relevant all the time, regardless of whatever government gets in later on this year. We're asking this council to contact our government and get something done. It won't be a Labour government like next year, but I want the letter sending now. I want something happening now. Our residents want something happening now. People want the roads repaired yesterday. Please vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. This is shortly going to the vote. Under the Constitution, a call for a recorded vote must come before the normal vote, and I'm now going to put it to the normal vote. So, all those in favour?
So we were reminding.
We've got a figure.
Yeah, against.
All those against?
Did you get Boyd?
Okay. Any abstentions? No.
Motion falls. 19 falls. 35 against. Falls.
There are 19 votes for the motion. There are 35 against. The motion falls. Motion 2, Nottingham Forest Football Club. The chairman calls Councillor Martin to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's talk progress then. Many of you know that Nottingham Forest have been at the City Ground for 125 years, and its iconic stadium is nestled on the bank of the River Trent, just a stone's throw from County Hall. As a season ticket holder, things are really exciting for Nottingham Forest. After 23 long years in the Championship, they finally got promotion back into the Premier League. Just 2 years ago, the club have great plans under the new owner Evangelos Marinakis. These would be immense benefits for the whole of the Nottinghamshire and our region's economy. Expanding the stadium from its current capacity of 29,500 up to 40,000 is worth in excess of £150 million of investment in the stadium. This is something that's not been seen since the heady days of the legends Brian Clough and Peter Taylor in the 70s and 80s. The new look City Ground is poised to change the skyline of the banks of the Trent, and deservedly so, because in the Premiership, the income of the club is intrinsically linked to the profit and sustainability rules of the Premier League. So, with an enthusiastic owner, all future planning in place, an iconic world-famous stadium, the unwavering support of the fans in the Premier League, and finally back in the Premier League, what could go wrong? A Labour-led City Council strangled by poor financial decisions after 14 years of local government cuts. Nottingham City Council must now make savings of multiple millions and so are unable to manage their own budget. They recently issued a 114 notice and they went bust. Now they're being managed by the government's mandarins whose sole mission is to rescue the council at all costs. And they've lost control, irrespective of the consequences of the people on Nottingham, which is a horrendous place to be, to say the least. But it has wider implications. The land that the City Ground sits on is currently on a lease from the City Council for £250,000 over 50 years, which was last signed up in 2011. Nottingham Forest have tried on numerous occasions to renegotiate that agreement. However, it is understood the City Council is asking as one option for the annual rent to be almost quadrupled to £1 million a year. It's clear that when it comes to the freehold, the council, I repeat, now run by the government commissioners, value the land as potential future residential area. Therefore, the figures quoted for it are dramatically higher than would ordinarily be expected, and for Forest they are unviable. They have now reached an impasse with the City Council in special measures because of their financial crisis. There is no indication of when or if that position might change in the near future, and over longer periods of time that would only serve to restrict the club's progress. Their only option is almost definitely not their preferred one. It's not my preferred one either, but their preferred one is to look at creating a plan B and build an entirely new 55,000-seater stadium on land further out from the city, capable of a greater diversity of uses throughout the year. New enhanced training facilities could be developed there too, bringing all of the club's activities into one area, and they would be world-class facilities for generations to come. I spoke at length with the club's chairman, Tom Cartledge, and he has thanked Nottinghamshire County Council and its councillors for their support in advance. Looking at the success stories of Arsenal, Spurs, Man City and Man United, and now Everton building their new home on Bramley-Moore Dock in Liverpool, and a few others, it is very often the revenue from their off-field activities that is allowing these clubs to dominate the league. So the club has all the aspirations but not the support of the City Council, because after all that time and investment it seems that the club would still be at the mercy of such a crisis again in the future. This is where we believe that the County Council could step in. As all members will know from the last budget council meeting, Nottinghamshire County Council bought land in and around Toton for £23 million in 2019. And this was, to quote from a report at the time, to take advantage of HS2. Now that HS2 has been cancelled, this site would be an ideal home for Forest. As I repeat, as a last resort, if negotiations go wrong with the club and Nottingham City Council, now being managed by the government mandarins from Whitehall. The 56-acre site seems ideally located, Mr. Chairman. It sits alongside the Brian Clough Way, and it's literally 5 minutes from the M1 Junction 25. I wonder what Cloughie would have thought about this today. As I've said, Toton seems ideally located. The tram stops at the Park and Ride just off Toton Lane, and the railway lines are already there by the River Erewash for a new station. This has also been included in the integrated rail plan. Nottingham Forest being located at Toton would move that along nicely. In the last term at Policy Committee, I saw plans for the tram to be extended into this site and for a new connection to the Toton hub and a potential connection with the A52, now named the Brian Clough Way, as well. This could be a major boost for the economies of the immediate surrounding towns in Broxtowe, such as Beeston, Stapleford, Bramcote. Also, across the border in Erewash, like Sandy Acre and Long Eaton. I do personally think people would still go into the city and then make their way over because there would be nearly twice as many of them. Well, that's myself got the right Peter. There would be nearly twice as many of them with the ability to buy tickets in a larger stadium. This is the case in Manchester as fans stay, eat and drink in the city centre before heading down to the Etihad Stadium in the East Manchester. All this motion is doing, Mr. Chairman, is to start the conversation, which now has to be had, because every parent watches their child grow with the aspiration of a brighter and better future. Whether you're a football fan or not, it's clear social economic impact of Nottingham Forest benefits everywhere in our wider region. Please support my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. The Chairman calls Jason Zadrozny to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to second the motion and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I have an
Councillor
amendment.
Gerling, what do you?
I have an amendment to the motion. Can we pass it round and then I'll speak once everybody's seen the amendment?
Yes, Councillor
Thank
Gerling.
you.
It's got to be moved first.
So we can do it now.
Yeah,
Councillor Gerling, you can move this amendment.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Clearly, this is a motion with an emotive subject. Passions will be running high. Indeed, I was in Hucknall last Friday opening the Grange there, and people approached me then to say about what's happening with the city ground and things. So clearly, it is on everybody's lips. You'll see from the amendment, really, there's only one word that changed within it, and some grammatic changes because of the word that continue has been put in. And that's because I want to make it really clear that, you know, you're not telling us that we need to be doing something. Actually, we've been doing it for quite some time now. Officers and myself had several meetings with Nottingham Forest, and a memorandum of understanding will be coming to me to sign in my April EDAM Cabinet meeting. Let me make this very clear. We were approached by Nottingham Forest. We are treating them like any other developer who shows an interest in any of our land and property. If we get to the point where there could be an agreement, we will do what we always do and put it through the proper process to advance the opportunity. Like with any other developer, we will apply best value principles. Like with any other developer, we will work with them to support their aspirations for a long-term home and training facilities. We have a follow-up meeting in April where DEFCO will also be involved. Chairman, I trust this demonstrates to members that we are doing exactly what we should be doing, and it is to look after the interests of the people of Nottinghamshire. What is not helpful is when councillors chase headlines and say things to the press like Toton already has the infrastructure, including a train stop and a railway station. I would like to know where this railway station is, because there isn't one. There's a sidings. This is in the paper. This is in the paper quoted.
No, we're not. You are so animated.
Can I carry on, Chairman? Thank you, Chairman. These are commercially sensitive conversations we have, and the more that is said in, publicly only helps to tie our hands behind our backs. So please stop. This administration does not rush in. We carefully consider all aspects and work through potential solutions, and such statements are very unhelpful. Maybe next time he will be more thoughtful and actually contact me for advice, and I'll be happy to tell him what I can. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to clarify this Conservative administration's approach to such a sensitive issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Girling. We have a seconder. We have Councillor Adair. Councillor Adair, would you like to second the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I second the motion to reserve my rights.
So now you're going to offer an
Councillor Martin, do you want an adjournment? Will you consider the amendment? Or you can accept the amendment if you wish.
I'll have a 2-hour adjournment.
I'll
take the amendment. Yeah.
You'll accept the amendment?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Zadrozny, that's...
Mr. Chairman, before I would accept the amendment, I would like an intervention from the Chief Executive, please, because I've heard this scolding off of Councillor Girling that we've done the wrong thing, whereas it's been very plain from their amendment that the administration, not politically, but using council resource, have been entering into these negotiations already, and yet no member of the opposition, to my knowledge, have been made aware of this through full council, through leadership meetings, through committees, and therefore there must be some governance arrangements. The administration cannot administer the opposition for doing something that they've not been informed about. So I think there's some ultra vires actions here. Either Councillor Girling has been acting in his political capacity, or the council have been putting public resource in terms of officer time into these meetings. And I think for us to have an open debate, Chief Executive, you need to explain what this administration and officers have been doing under the duress of the administration, so we can have it all out on the table. Yeah. Thank you.
Chairman, if you wish, I can answer that.
Councillor Girling. Councillor Payne, is yours a point of order? Or?
Also, I'm not going to make a further contribution. I don't want to contribute substantively to the debate, Mr. Chairman, because I'm concerned in all of this that there are actually fans and people in the community who are impacted on this. They haven't figured in this conversation at all thus far. And may I hasten to add, in the last few weeks, they haven't, in the political yardoo that this has become, including from our county MPs, of which the leader is one, the name he put to letters, and the offer he's made. In all seriousness, without the chuntering, Mr. Chairman, this matter, because of what I have just described, has become a serious matter of public interest. And I am asking now on the record, and I am going to be asking this in writing, given what Councillor Girling has just said, who made the approach from the
Right.
No, I need to ask these questions, Mr. Chairman.
You've made a point of order. You've said you're going to do it in writing.
No,
Can I advise you to do it in
Mr.
writing?
Chairman, this is my point. This is my point of order. Something's been said in the chamber. It deserves a response. I will also put this in writing, but I am saying it here verbally. We've had a statement made by Councillor Girling in good faith, and I take him at his word. There are some questions I think that need to be answered. Who was the approach made by on behalf of Nottingham Forest? Because he was very clear the approach was made by Nottingham Forest. When was the approach made? Who has been involved in those discussions, both at an elected member level and at an officer level? And where are those discussions up to? And I don't want that discussion to take place in here now in the chamber, because I absolutely support what Councillor Girling says around the commercial and confidence sense around these, which is why it was very ill-advised of the leader to make the offer he made in the press earlier this week about the county standing by to offer an alternative, presumably in a response to the letter that the city MPs had sent, which came off the back of a letter he'd also sent with 7 other MPs. But the questions I have asked: who was the approach made by on behalf of Nottingham Forest to the County Council? When was the approach made? What has been the subject of those conversations? And who, from an elected officer and member perspective, we know is involved in those conversations, they need to be addressed. And I'm asking them because this has become an issue of public interest. And we as elected members are being asked questions about this. I have been approached and have been asked questions about this. So I'm not calling for there to necessarily be a response to the Chamber now, but somebody, whoever is the most appropriate person in the Council, needs to respond and address those questions.
Councillor Payne, from raising the point of order, and you've now addressed the amendment. Is that correct? Comment before I take it forward. Yeah.
Okay. So, members, this is. I think you know well that my preference here is always to make sure that this is your stage. This is the place where you come to debate. And the role that we as officers play here is making sure that the information that you've got before you has met all of the relevant tests and due diligence. So it's not normally my place to enter into your debate. I appreciate the sentiment that you're making, and if I can bridge the 2 points together, I think Michael's asking some reasonable questions as well, which we can't respond to here and now because we haven't prepared a paper that would address those. If there's a demand or if there's an opportunity to bring some of that information forward through a proper democratic process, I would certainly work with the administration to do that. Let me offer one comment though, just to allow you to get back to your debate about the motion that's being put forward here. I'm not aware that we have been in breach of any of our due diligence or processes around engaging with potential land or property transactions at this point. We can, of course, look into that and make sure that we give due process and give some democratic oversight to that. If I can bring it back, though, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, you've got a motion that has been tested here, that has been validated by the monitoring officer, an amendment that's been put forward which has similarly been validated. We think you have all of the tools at your disposal now to engage in a political debate about the amendment, and at that point, Chairman, I'll probably hand back to you.
Right. So, Councillor Martin, you proposed the original. Are you're prepared to accept? Still prepared to accept the amendment? Councillor Zodrozny, you're prepared to accept the amendment?
Yep.
Yeah. So, in that case, we ask we talk to the amendment. We've got Councillor Welsh.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Councillor Hollis had indicated first. Sorry, Tom.
Councillor Hollis, you appear to have indicated first, so I'll give you first opportunity.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, members will be aware that I'm a lifelong Nottingham Forest fan and season ticket holder. And I'm really proud to be a fan, actually. And unlike Councillor Bradley, I'm glad to be a paying fan of Nottingham City, of Nottingham Forest.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I think Councillor Hollis is making some allegations here that I am somehow perhaps taking gifts or something that I'm not declaring. It's not the case. I am a paying season ticket holder, and I don't understand where this allegation has come from. It would, as he knows, given his recent experience, be a criminal offence for me to do that. So I'm not sure why he would seek to make that allegation.
Thank you for that clarity, Councillor Bradley. Councillor,
Thank you, Mr.
can you
Chairman.
continue without making any
It's a point of national information that he accepted £3,500 from a gambling company which paid for an executive box there, but that's a point of public information, so that's factually correct what he just said to the Chamber. But I think the point being, not to get away from Councillor Payne made it an excellent point. People in this room and people we all sit next to and go through the turnstiles with, the genuine fans, they're the ones that are affected by this. They're the ones that are worried by this. They haven't been consulted, as I think members here acknowledge. And ultimately, they're thinking, not only is the history, because I remember walking through those turnstiles with my grandfather, who's sadly passed now, and I'm sure other members can relate to that. There's not just where do we go and park our bums, or where do we go and have a beer. It's about all the sentimental value as well. That hasn't been addressed. Nobody's been consulted, and that's why I'm very concerned with some of the conversations, particularly Councillor Girling iterated during his speech. I think that's been picked up by other members. But it's also about businesses, Mr. Chairman. You know, there's many businesses that are reliant on actually the pints they sell, the burgers they sell, the car parking spaces they sell, including the rugby club down the road, that are all affected by where Nottingham Forest is located. And the fact that nobody in the public has been consulted with this so far is a real concern to the genuine fans and business holders that rely on Nottingham Forest being where it is. But also, if Nottingham Forest were to move, which in many respects is out of the gift of this council and members, you know, we need to make sure that we're helping as much as possible, and that is, for example, finding an alternative location. And we need to rely on other businesses and transport partners to help facilitate that move if we were to move. But the fact that it's been held in secret does raise concerns. And I would like to ask the leader of the council a number of questions that I hope he takes the opportunity now to clear up. Firstly, will he involve opposition members in these what's been now confirmed from the Conservatives as ongoing discussions, so we all can be kept up to loop? Would he confirm if anybody associated with Nottingham Forest has donated to his mayoral campaign? Because certainly now we've been told that there's been smoke-filled room discussions.
We're getting off the subject.
I'm giving him the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. This is a debate, and I'm entitled to have a debate. I would like to know if there has been donations made from anybody associated with Nottingham Forest towards Mr. Bradley's mayoral campaign. We already know he's received free tickets, and I'd like to separate the council's land discussions with Nottingham Forest as relocation, because actually the genuine discussion here needs to be, if the city council choose to remove them from the site, we've clearly got great locations. Let's help them.
Point of order, Chairman.
Sure Nottingham Forest.
Point of order, Councillor Girling. What is it?
91. That's the point of order.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're being accused of having smoky backroom deals with Nottingham Forest. Yeah. It's commercially sensitive information. What do you want us to do? Put it on Facebook? You know, of course you don't.
You made your point of order, Councillor.
Of course you don't. But it's okay. It's saying things which are blatantly untrue. It's not true. We can't have those conversations in public. They're not smoky rooms. They're confidential.
Councillor Hollis, can you sort of concentrate on the debate rather than?
I think it's quite interesting to hear. So
the chief executive's already said that everything is acceptable. That this is acceptable. So there's certain part of this book board you can speak to it.
I've been a member here since 2013, Mr. Chairman, and I can't recall, other than this time, where members of the opposition haven't been engaged with a sensitive discussion. We aren't the public. We are members of a 66-member controlled council, where equally we are all elected to equal parts of the county to represent our constituents. I have hundreds of Nottingham Forest fans in my own division, and across Ashfield, across Nottinghamshire. We are trying to ask questions on behalf of them. Councillor Girling has already told us he's had private discussions. Why haven't members of the council been involved with that? That's the question. And then the sensitive part comes in, when there's clearly been gifts exchanged in other parts of it, and there's a mayoral campaign going on, I struggle in my mind to separate those two things. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I've made my point expressly, but I think as Councillor Payne has made, and I think Councillor Martin has already, I want to know what's going off here. And I think there's more questions raised from the fact that you've now acknowledged that discussions have been going on for a while. That's my concern, Mr. Chairman, and I really hope the one thing that comes out of this is we get a permanent solution for Nottingham Forest. That's what all around here want to see. Thank you.
Councillor Welsh, would you like to speak now? Thank you very much for waiting.
Thank you. I'm not a lifelong Nottingham Forest fan because my dad, God bless him, decided to take me to Meadow Lane when I was 4.5 years old. And I have been, it's been a bit of a roller coaster to say the least, but I do fully recognise what Nottingham Forest does actually bring to this county and to the city and to the world. In fact, I spent quite a few years living over in America, and it wasn't unusual to see a Nottingham Forest shirt over there either. Chair, I rise today because, being a Notts County fan, as you know, there have been lots of trials and tribulations over the years, and one of those is when fans have been ignored and when we thought our club wasn't going to survive anymore. And it's those feelings and emotions of attachment that you have to a club is what has most inspired me to speak today. So before I came to this council chamber, I called upon a few very close friends of mine that are very involved in Nottingham Forest with regards to supporters clubs, etc. And I showed them this motion, and I just wanted to read a couple of things that they replied to me, because I am frustrated that this has become a political football. The future of a club is more than actually football and it being played on the floor, and I find it really frustrating, really frustrating. So I asked one of my good friends, what do you think about moving? What do you think about the situation? And perhaps I'll only read this one. Perhaps this just is enough. Fans will be devastated if we moved. Going to the city grounds and watching a match isn't just about the grass and the players and the pitch. It's about the build-up, getting close, seeing Trent Bridge, going to the same bars, the food, the places, and feeling like you have come home. Yeah. Just 1 second, I'm just going down. We are proud of the history of the City Ground has. It's more than a ground, and I don't think those who are saying that we can just move it to a new site understand that. Some things are more than just money. From what it sounds like, last one. Sorry, I do apologise. Some things are more just than money, but also we have to think about the risk of livelihood of local businesses and taking money out of the city and the county. For us, it doesn't make any sense at all. So, Chairman, I rise today that anything that we discuss and anything that decisions, and I appreciate that some things are commercially sensitive, but we must include the fans in all of this. There are fans, honestly, that will be lying awake at night worried about what the future of their club and where they're going to be in the future. And this isn't about me taking any particular side. This is about me saying that the working person that saves up for their season ticket every year to go to the football, that saves up to buy their son or daughter or their grandson or their granddaughter the kit that costs a fortune for football now. Notts County kit's over 50 quid for my son, and that's Notts County. So what I'm saying in all of this is the local businesses, but also it's the fans. And at the moment, they feel that they're not being listened to, and that has to change. It really has to change. As I said, I'm a Notts County fan, but this Notts County fan is standing before everybody here today after a lifelong of jibes for being a Notts County fan from various Forest fans to say that football is more than football for so many people, and we have to respect that and we have to value that. And if we're really are a council where we want to put people first, then we need to be talking to the fans. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Welsh. The Chairman calls Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope I can bring us back to the point here, really, which is that whilst we all know and understand how important Forest is to the city and the community and to the fans, this ain't our decision. Can we just get that through our heads? That actually Nottingham Forest will decide where Nottingham Forest Stadium is, not the County Council. We're in a position where we are, of course, happy to speak to and work with anybody who wants to invest in our county, in the city, and anybody who wants help to put money into our communities. Of course, we're happy to do that. We treat Nottingham Forest exactly the same as we treat anybody else. And that is the point that we need to bring this back to. It is not for us to decide how Nottingham Forest communicate their plans, what Nottingham Forest decide to do with the stadium, or how Nottingham Forest want to engage with the wider fan base and community. So I'm more than happy to stand here and reiterate all the same kinds of points. I'm a Forest fan. I went to my first game in 1998. We lost 5-1 to Blackburn. We got relegated soon after. It's been a torrid time ever since. But I'm more than happy and delighted to see the investment in the club, to see the growth that it brings to our communities, to see the benefit that it's given to the city and the wider area. That is all absolutely without question. But when it comes to a commercial conversation about a potential land acquisition that, by the way, is not anywhere near that stage where we're talking about potential land acquisition, so let's be absolutely clear about that. We've been approached by Nottingham Forest, who said, if, in the circumstance that we can't find a way to stay, would you be prepared to work with us to try and find alternatives? So which, of course, in the spirit of what I said before, we will work with anybody who wants to invest in our communities to try and find ways to help them to do that. We said yes, and we've exchanged correspondence to that effect. That's as far as it goes. And there's nothing more widely to discuss. That is the what we're here for as an economic development team. Can you imagine what would happen if we just said, no, actually, sod off, you sort yourself out? Of course, we're willing to support anybody who wants to invest in our communities. Now, as a fan and as a resident who understands the impact on the city, we all want them to sort something out with the city council and to be able to move forward. Whether they then want to do more, whether they want to build a stadium, whether they want to expand the fan base, we've all seen the challenges of financial fair play and all the rest of it. That's a business decision for Nottingham Forest to take. And they will engage with fans on that, as they already have. They had a fan forum at the beginning of the month where they raised this issue. Let's not forget that this issue is in the public domain because the chairman put it on the BBC on the 2nd of March. I'm looking at the article here. So it's not been a secret conversation at all. And we have had those conversations following them having raised that in public, following the stalemate in that negotiation with the City Council, which has led this to become a public conversation. So let's just be absolutely clear. There's nothing untoward going on here. There are no conversations in smoky rooms. We do multiple conversations with multiple developers every year about various bits of interest in bits of land and buildings and things we might want to engage in. We have a capital programme where we sell things and we buy and build things. That's how our budget works. And if we had all of those conversations in the public domain, we briefed every member about every time anybody ever comes to ask us about whether we'll work with them or not, you'd be sat in constant briefings forever and a day. And most of them are not relevant. And most of them don't go anywhere, and most of them are high-level conversations. I would fully expect Forest to come to some conclusion with the City Council and all of this to move on anyway. I fully accept what you say, Michael, though, about this being of more public interest than the usual land acquisition. And of course, therefore, more than happy to work with the Chief Executive and with officers to figure out what we can disclose and what is commercially sensitive and what briefing and conversation we can have. More than happy to do that. Because as Councillor Gurley said, we treat this conversation in exactly the same way as we treat any other conversation with any other business who came to talk to us about investing in our community. So let's be absolutely clear about that. We're more than happy, as the motion now reads, to continue those conversations, to explore options if Forest wants to explore options, but let's remember that it's up to them how their business wants to invest, up to them if they want to explore options. I am not sat here, Keith is not sat here saying they should do this one or that one. That is a business decision for Nottingham Forest. And anything that they do, I have no doubt they will want to consult fans with, as they've already begun to do in their fan forum with the chairman a couple of weeks ago. I don't want to get involved in that public conversation. Keith doesn't want to get involved in that public conversation. That is a matter for them. And if they come to us, having had that negotiation with Forest, and if they come and say that is not with the City Council and say it's not going to work and we're going to have to find something else, of course we will work with them to do that. But it's really, really unhelpful to have particular sites and particular bits of land bandied around in the media, because that only leaves us hamstrung when it comes to commercial negotiations and trying to get best value for the public. So we're happy to speak to this motion, support this motion to continue exploring those options, and we will have that conversation, Michael, about what we can share and bring members into the loop on that. Let's just be sensible and not use this as a political football, because this is about the city and its economy.
The Chairman calls Councillor Garland.
Thank you. As I've already said today, I personally think this proposal is bad for Nottinghamshire, bad for Nottingham, bad for residents, bad for local businesses, and probably bad for fans. However, more to the point, I think the publicising this proposal is a shameful, damaging, political move by the Tories, and I'm disappointed but not surprised that the Nottinghamshire Independents have jumped on this damaging bandwagon with this motion. As you know, the reason the city has financial problems is because it's got a lot of Band A and Band B houses. Right. However, I want to talk about the fact that we proposed an amendment specifically including fans and residents as stakeholders, and considering fans and residents should have to support any proposed changes before they were pursued. I was shocked to read the response to our amendment, which has effectively silenced fans and local residents. It was ruled out because the amendment changes the spirit of the motion by its negative wording. To suggest our amendment would change the spirit of the motion by being negative is laughable and Orwellian.
Councillor Gowland, if you've got an issue with this amendment, you need to take it up with the monitoring officer. It's not a forum for you to present it here.
I think it's right. The council should know why our amendment was rejected. It was rejected because fans discussing with fans and local residents was apparently beyond the intention of motion.
Yes.
Either this motion is asking for an act of the council, or it's not, Councillor Bradley. Which is it? If it isn't, then it's not meant to be discussed here, is it? Why are we discussing it at all? If it's not a matter of the council,
we're discussing our amendment, not yours, Councillor Gowland. Let's be.
This
we're
motion
discussing this side,
amendment a
not
motion
yours.
for council.
That side.
No.
I'm talking about motion. This is motion
Oh,
for
right.
council. But this isn't about local. This isn't just about football. It's about local democracy. We have tried to raise serious problems in the county for our residents on numerous occasions and be refused on spurious grounds. Big issues like flooding, climate change, and our rivers. Our amendment on Storm Babbitt was rejected because we wanted to mention climate change, which is apparently beyond the scope of the motion. And we're writing to the government about national policy measures despite government's failure impacting us directly. An amendment on free school meals, asking to write to partners to collate data on the scale of child poverty, was rejected. Just today, DWP have confirmed it's 100,000 more.
Chairman, can I raise a point of order, please? Point 70.
Taylor, what is it?
Point 70, and it's really simplistic, that the member is not speaking to the subject under discussion.
Okay, I'll stop there. This level of democracy would make Putin proud and makes these meetings a waste of time and taxpayers' money. I vote move the vote be taken.
Second. Move the vote.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you. Sure. Sorry, I don't know what to do. Are you taking the move to vote, or do you want me to sit down? Yeah. Oh, hang on then.
Yeah, point of order.
I am, but the chief
Point of
executive
order.
was taking advice.
Point of order. Chair, can you give us some clarification? The Councillor Gowland has moved that the vote be taken. Why can we not have the vote?
Members, if I could have your attention then, please. My second incursion onto your stage in one meeting from the wings. So just to be really clear, bringing the debate to an early closure does require a councillor who has not already spoken to move a motion. Please bear with me. Please bear with me. And for it to be seconded. It is then for the chairman to determine whether or not we bring the debate to an early close if there has been sufficient discussion of the issue. So the chairman will need to determine that, having had it moved and seconded. So it is obviously in your gift as to whether you want to move and second it, and for the chairman then to decide.
So what I've decided. So will you just listen?
It hasn't been moved and seconded yet. Okay. Do we have a seconder?
Formally second. Oh, yeah.
Already made mine.
Right. So the situation is that your party have had a lot of the debate. This particular section, I've got several speakers. I've got a couple of speakers who have not had their opportunity. So I intend to take a couple of speakers from this side, and then we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, and
Right,
thank
Councillor
you.
Carr.
And of course, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. It's actually an independent slides motion as well, and I don't think you'd like it if we did that to you. But there we go. I too would be mortified, Councillor Welsh, if Forest moved on the city ground. I have absolutely fantastic, spine-tingling memories of the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, standing in the Trent End and later on going to the seats in the Trent End, and it would be mortified. One of the issues, of course, is if they want to have a 55,000 seater stadium, is that the right place for it? It'd be interesting to know what Rushcliffe Council's planning authorities would make of that. And of course, not only that, the residents that live around there. But that is not what we're here to talk about. What I am concerned about is that the leaders are getting quite excited and et up about this. And at the end of the day, the amendment that's been put forward has added a word and changed a word, and that's it. So what now we're in the situation is us calling for you to have meaningful discussions with Nottingham Forest, to being told that you already are having meaningful discussions with Nottingham Forest. And that's a bit of a worry that we have to find out about that at a meeting like this. And to be fair, you've not tried to hide it. You've altered the motion to actually tell us that. But this is a hugely important issue. And I know one of the sites that may be being mooted by Forest is the land that we talked about in the budget. I won't name it, but it'd be interesting to know when those discussions first started taking place with Forest, because at the budget meeting I was told that land couldn't possibly be used for anything else other than economic development. So I'd be interested to know when that date is. However, having said that, I think, to be honest with you, I think we're all on the same sheet here. We're getting et up about nothing particularly, other than we were asking you to do it. You told us we were doing it. But I think what we're saying is, as opposition councillors, we want to know a bit more about that. It is important to the thousands of people that we all represent who are Nottingham Forest fans. Very, very important. And it's a big issue for Nottingham Forest fans to move away from the city ground. So let's talk to each other on this issue, and let's not, start bandying about accusations of this, that, and the other. But let's work together on this one, is all I would say. But I have to say, when you find out something's been happening that you didn't know about, and you've put forward a motion asking for that to happen, that is a worry to me. That is a real worry to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. So, Councillor Shaw, the chairman calls you to speak now.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a Forest fan, and I'm not a county fan. But I fully appreciate what is happening over the road. It's all about identity. It's about a sense of community. It's almost a religious expectation every week as you travel through the gates of any football club. You only get that in certain grounds. Grounds that have disappeared. Stoke City, they lost theirs, Victoria Ground. Main Road, Manchester City. Everton will lose theirs. And my beloved club, Wigan Athletic, we lost ours. You will never get that atmosphere back. So all I ask is that if we as a council would work with the City Council to see if they can work with Nottingham Forest to keep them in their home. And that's what a lot of fans want, and I think that would be the way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Camilleri.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'm saying here as a Mansfield Town supporter, as a young boy playing going to Mansfield, I am completely not interested in Nottingham Forest at all. I'm not bothered if you move ground or whatever. I'm going to say we're discussing here an issue of the increase in rent at the city ground. home of Nottingham Forest Football Club, and whether or not they move their ground. It's a matter that requires our attention and consideration. I don't think so. It's nothing to do with us. While it is true that other local football clubs, such as Mansfield Town, also need our assistance, we've got to focus on this issue in hand. Nottingham Forest Club is an important part of some people's lives, and we must do what we can do to support them. However, we must keep in mind that this conversation should be private. Not all residents are supporters of the football club. We must also consider the fact that the club is owned by a multi-millionaire who may be capable of making his own decisions and doesn't need our input. As council members, our priority is to serve the needs of our community. We must weigh the importance of supporting a football club, and if you could hear yourself today, you'd want to know, against other pressing issues such as adult care, childcare, and repairing our roads. In conclusion, let's approach the issue with an open mind and a willingness to find a solution that benefits all parties involved, especially our residents and them that don't support Nottingham Forest Football Club, which there are many of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camilleri. Councillor Adair, you reserved your right to speak. Would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's all been said.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adair. Councillor Zad Rosny, you reserved your right to speak. Would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we're drawing to a conclusion, then yes, I will. I will say, Mr. Chairman, that I have to come back to my disappointment that this debate has taken the turns it has, because I think all of us clearly are passionate about this issue and making sure the best is the best outcome for the future takes place. And I think the pious and condescending way that Councillor Girling portrayed his amendment completely missed the point, that he could not admonish members of the opposition for doing something for which they remained in the dark, and to so patronisingly tell people off that they'd mentioned sites or a process that you have deliberately hidden from us and then tell us off for not reading your mind is tantamount to impertinence. How dare you? How dare you choose? How dare you choose to hide things from democratically elected members and then try to condescend and ridicule them in this chamber for not knowing about your underhanded, dodgy dealings? How dare you, Councillor Girling? Your smoke-filled rooms should be the subject of the health well-being meetings, because it's you that are having these meetings. Councillor Bradley, I mean, this is the latest episode of Ben Behaving Bradley. I mean, my goodness, I can hear the theme tune. It's crackers that this isn't a positive thing. And it's because you lied to us in the previous meeting. We were deliberately misled in the budget meeting about land at Towton. And then when the independent group tried to come up with positive suggestions, we're told that we don't know about what's happening. Well, that's because you've deliberately withheld information. You are a bunch of Shylocks and charlatans. How dare you? How dare you? I can't wait for May next year when not one of you holds your seat. Mr. Chairman, this was a positive motion put forward about the benefits of football. And I think members would be bewildered for me to stand here and say I'm a massive football fan. I'm not. But what I do see is the huge economic and social benefits of what all of the sporting clubs in Nottinghamshire bring to our county. It's unparalleled. And I think, despite the melee of discussion we're having, people feel passionately about it because they know that. They know the transformative powers of sport in our communities, the economic benefits that it has in the city and wider. And I think it's a disgrace that this debate has turned into this, like some brawl, because of your behaviour. You are a bunch of children, and you should really be put on the naughty step to think about your behaviour. It's utterly embarrassing. Now, we know, and I could go into it, I'm disappointed that Labour colleagues have sought to curtail the debate because of their embarrassment of what's happened at the City Council. And I'd be embarrassed. I think the City Council's been run poorly, and that's why we're in this place. But I equally lay the blame at the Conservative government for their atrocious cuts to local government.
There's a point of order, Councillor Rosny.
Sorry,
Councillor
Chairman.
Dare, you point
Yeah,
of order.
sorry, Chairman. I'm just sitting here listening, and I'm going to a point of order here. I'll use 70 for it, and I'll say I don't like sitting and taking abusive behaviour from somebody on the other side of the chamber, and that's the first time I've ever said that in this chamber.
That's not a point of order, is it, Mr. Chairman?
You want to see what some of us are going.
Sorry, Reg, you can probably have a training session on what
Can
points of
you
order
talk?
are
Can
afterwards.
you talk to
Mr. Chairman,
the
I
motion?
am talking to the point of order. After listening to the dribble that's come out from across the chamber, I'm going to finish what I've got to say. Mr. Chairman, I think there's a huge amount to be said. Members will know that there's a huge frustration for the club. And the worst case scenario for Forest is that delays with the City Council will remain unresolved for a long time. And so it's unfeasible for the club not to do anything and to look at possible plan Bs. And that's why land that is within the control of this county council should... I have 10 minutes, Mr. Chairman. I do, I've checked. Yeah, your constitution says 10 minutes. Or seconding. But I reserved my right. That right doesn't say at the beginning or the end. It says. Hang on, Mr. No, it doesn't. The mover and seconder of the motion may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. No, I have one opportunity to speak. I have one opportunity to speak. The mover or a seconder has 10 minutes to speak at one end of the debate or the other. I mean, I can get why you don't want me to keep speaking. You should go outside and think about your naughty behaviour, Mr. Gurley. You're a very naughty boy. Item 65 of each. I won't use it. I'm fine. I just think it's. I won't use it. Give me 1 minute, Mr. Chairman. I'll finish. I don't want to cause you more angst than you already have. I'm worried you'll make yourself poorly. But look, Mr. Chairman. Look. I think it's clear that something's got to be done. It's right and proper that this council, as Councillor Bradley said, engages with people like this when they come to us and speak. I think it's also right and proper, given the regional and national importance of Forest to its fans and to our economy, that in this sort of situation, that at least the leaders of the opposition are afforded a conversation so we know what's happening. I also think that they shouldn't be misled in this chamber if you're having those conversations. And you, as leader of the council, would do well to rein in members when they admonish opposition members for not knowing what you're up to. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll conclude in hoping that in a few years' time, Councillor Martin is known as one of the men who helped save Nottingham Forest, and that we can, despite the hooliganish actions of the members opposite, come together to support a very important motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, the Chairman calls Councillor Martin.
I'll explain. Blinking heck. I never thought it was going to go like this. Right, I'm sorry that Councillor Gurley, we didn't know, honestly, we didn't know. My passion for this is as a Forest fan, right, and now they're in a crux, they're in a caught between a rock and a hard place. That's where my idea came from. Yeah, you were already doing it, I didn't know about that. That's why. And I never said there was a railway station at Towton. It's a trowel, right? The IRP, there's one in the IRP, integrated rail plan, right? And I never said that there was a station there. There's a plan for a tram extension into that site from before, right? So that's all not there at the moment. I know where the train stops. I know where the tram stops, right? I do. It stops at Toton. Stops at Toton.
Point of order, Councillor Martin. Point of order, Councillor Butler. Councillor Jackson, sorry.
There isn't a train station in Trowell either, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, for that clarity. Would you
I'll
like to
take that
continue,
one, Richard, 'cause
Councillor
I've never
Martin?
been there. Right, so you've thrown me off now, right? So the debate, honestly, about the history, I get that, right? We talk about the history, right? We talk about the history of Nottingham Forest. These are 79, 78 season tickets, mine, right? And only Forest fans will know the relevance of those 2 years, right? This one's from 2014, okay? Right? So I'm not speaking as a 2-minute Forest fan. I don't want other Forest fans out there calling me a 2-bit Forest fan, because I'm not, right? I've been a Forest fan for a very long time. In fact, I only started going when I started working. You know, they're in a corner and we obviously agree. We obviously agree with everything you're doing, Ben, but it would have been helpful if we would have been informed, and then we probably wouldn't have launched it out in the same way that we have done. Right? So as for going on the bandwagon, Councillor Gowland, you know, I've been a Forest fan since I was about 10. So I'm not jumping on any bandwagons, all right? So, and I'm mortified, and my 20-year-old son will be horrified at this debate, because he is a true Forest fan who's been going to Forest while we've been in the Championship all that time and does not want to move. That's the last thing on his mind. But the financial fair play rules of the Premier League change all the statistics for Forest. They're now at the behest of a council that's strapped down by government mandarins, and we don't know how long that's going to last, right? And I get the bit with the atmosphere. When you come across Trent Bridge, you can hear it. It's all over. So, I've been to loads of stadiums around the country where they've modernised them and changed them, and they've lost their soul. You know, and I've seen it in Stoke. I've seen it in Coventry. I've seen it in Doncaster, and I've seen it everywhere. So the actual debate was about galvanising something to happen from the city council, or giving them an option B, and letting them know loud and clear, right, that we will be supporting them. So I'll only say to a couple of Forest fans in this room, when those away fans sing "You Weren't Even Born," some of us actually were, all right, unfortunately. So please support the motion, because all I'm asking you to do, forget all the angst and everything else, all I'm asking us to do is help Nottingham Forest and our economy across the broader region if we have to, because actually they really need a 55,000 seater stadium, but they'll never be able to build it there because they're constrained by the geographical area around it. The training ground is second class compared to Leicester's, which is just over the border. Right? They actually in the Premier League, we've got an ideal opportunity here to make something really great from it. You know, because the training facilities would be world class, and that's the thing. And they want to build a carbon neutral stadium and all that kind of thing. And why shouldn't we? All other large clubs across the country have done it. There's no reason it can't happen in Nottinghamshire. But the biggest issue here is for the fans of Nottinghamshire, who will not want to move from the city ground, and I fully understand that, because I've been going to Forest for years and I understand it. But the site actually constrains their growth, and that's the problem, as well as they are now hampered by a calamitous city council that's collapsed under like a deck of cards under financial calamities, and that's all I'm going to say. So please support the motion. Hey? Oh yeah, I forgot. While I'm at it, this is a ball, right? And it's gone down, yeah. So I'm actually auctioning this. This is a 1984 signed Forest football that I'm auctioning for motor neurone disease next week at Jacksdale Social Club, because
thank you. We're not
the Forest Club. Oh, the bloke died from him. He was a Forest. He's putting me up here.
Yeah.
So I didn't get my balls out. Sure. Right. So yeah. So anyway, So what? Shut up. Right. So what I was actually saying to you was, I'm actually auctioning that football off, which is a signed Forest football from 1980 by Brian Clough and Pete Taylor, next week at a motor neurone disease auction in Jacksdale Social Club for my friend who died from motor neurone disease. That is the passion and that is the extent of football. It isn't just about that stadium, and it isn't just about that car park, and it isn't just about that bar. It's about those communities that live years after and eat, sleep and breathe football. You've all got them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. We're going to put this to the vote.
Can I have a point of clarification, Chair? Just briefly.
What is it, Councillor Carr?
Really, obviously, the motions go through quite a strict regime of approval now, as with amendments as well. And I'm just wondering why it wasn't pointed out to the motion proposed and seconder that you were already having talks with Nottingham Forest then. Could it have been that office?
Can you bring that up with the monitoring officer afterwards?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, could it be that the officers didn't know?
Yeah, okay. Right, we're going to put it to the vote then. So it's the amended motion becomes a substantial motion, which has been accepted, and we're going to put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Everybody in the room. Oh, okay.
Best vote, I think, for it.
Hands up, please, folks. Nice and clear.
Easier when we go to the next one. We've got a figure. 48. Right, thank you. All those against? All those abstentions? Is there abstentions?
You've got to do the poll. We've reminded you that earlier.
Yeah, I did.
Yes. I promise. 11.
So we've got 48 for, we've got 11 abstentions. So the vote is, there's 48 votes for the motion, there are no abstentions, and no against, sorry, and 11 abstentions. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for behaving in my last meeting. Thank you to everyone for attending today and to those viewing online. This meeting is now closed. We're allowing the broadcaster still.